So I'd like to welcome you all to the 2023 Candidates Night put on by the Plaistow Library. Can you, now that I've asked you all to take a seat, would you all please rise and join with me in a pledge to our old glory in the corner here on my right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. My name's Bob Harb. I'm your town moderator, but I've been asked to moderate this candidates night. With me is the assistant moderator of our town, Norm Major. Norm's the timekeeper. The rules that were published was everybody gets a minute to introduce themselves, you get a minute to answer questions, and you get a minute to wrap up. Makes it kind of easy, 60, 60, 60. And Norm will tell you, not in a loud voice, but he'll let you know when you have 10 seconds left in your minute. We're not going to ring a bell or play music. It's not Jeopardy. He'll just tell you you have 10 minutes, 10 seconds. It's my pleasure to introduce our library director, who's been with us for a number of years, Cab Vinton. He's got a few words to say. Cab. Oh, thank you.
Every year I say I'll be brief, so this time you get to boo me off if I don't. My 10 seconds? Nope, not yet. So first, I also want to thank Norm Major, who, as many of you know, has been representative for the town for many years, and just this weekend was honored in town, and we couldn't be happier to have Norm services again. I think 1996 you joined the House, so that's a lot of years of service, and we're grateful. There is a bathroom straight back that way, next to the mechanical room. We've provided a few materials that may help you during this voting season. This is hot off the presses, the town report. We have lots of copies over on the table at the western side of the room. Some handouts from candidates and from the library. Always lots going on, so we are partnering with the Historical Society this year and putting on a number of programs hosted here at the library. So there's a handout on that partnership. There is also a warrant article for the library this year. So we have a handout explaining some of the reasons behind that. There is a library trustee up for election this year, so that's another opportunity to ask those questions. And let's see if rushing through this. A few more thank yous. Our friends of the library, they do a lot of work for us in fundraising, but tonight they did our refreshments, so I'd like to thank the friends for their hard work throughout the years. And Dean Zanello, of course, who is handling our audiovisual duties tonight. So for folks who are not able to be here tonight or to watch online, there will be a recording that I think will be on channel 17 in just a day or two. And then finally, a big thank you to Bob, who I think you're also roughly 10 years into town moderation, or
10
thereabouts?
going on 12, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm very glad that it's not my duty to keep all these folks in line. So that's really it. Thank you all for coming, and vote next week after learning everything you need to know tonight. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Cab. I'm watching him. He's going to take all my notes. For this is live on Facebook Live, so that you'll know if you're watching, and Vimeo. And as he mentioned, Cab mentioned, it'll be on tape later on the cable, but it's live right now, so you're all live streaming. I want to mention, before I forget, election is in a week, March 14th. Everybody probably knows that. But to remind the public, we have new hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., not 8 p.m., 7 p.m. And we have a new location that we hope you're going to enjoy. The Plaistow Fish and Game. I thank the Fish and Game for giving us the opportunity to move the election there. We already have police details set up, so we hope it'll be a smooth election. 7 to 7, a week from today, March 14th, Plaistow Fish and Game, May Ray Avenue. Do not go to the parking garage. Thank you. So we're going to start with an introduction. For those of you that are new, we have almost 14 candidates that is going to present for you tonight. We've divided them up into 2 rounds. The first round, we have conflict of interest, library trustee, planning board, school board, and school budget committee. Our second round, because we can't have 14 people in the front of the room, we're going to have budget committee of the town and selectmen. So that's what we're doing. So if you're here, watch out, and you'll be able to see both groups. We have about an hour for each group to take questions. I have a number of questions here, and if we have time, we'll ask the audience here if you have anything you'd like to ask. Any question that's asked any candidate, all the candidates will answer that same question, whether I ask it or those present ask it. So first, I'd like to ask, and we'll start with Matt, way on the other end, the far left. Introduce yourself. You have 1 minute. What office are you running for? And why are you running for office? That was a question the public asked. Why are the people running for office? So we'll start with Matt. Norm's going to time everybody again. You'll be given the 10-second warning. Matt.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, and thank you, everybody that's joining us today in the room and for those watching at home. My name is Matt Termini. I'm running for re-election on the Conflict of Interest Committee for a full 3-year term. I have been sitting for the past year on one of the partial terms that needed to be filled during last year's election. And during the course of this past year, I've been serving as the committee's vice chair. Just a quick little bit about me. Grew up in town here, went to school here for a short period of time, was away, but have been back now in town for about 6 years with my wife and our 3 dogs. And the reason I'm running is I've really enjoyed my time serving on the committee for the short period that I've been back with the Conflict of Interest Committee, and I believe in public service. I believe in folks taking stake in the community in which they live, and particularly with this group, I think we've got a really great group of individuals who are available for the citizens of Plaistow if they have any concerns or petitions about how government's being run at the local level.
1 minute. Thank you, Matt. Jennifer.
Good evening. I'm glad you're all here tonight. My name is Jennifer Cassius. I've lived in town for almost 50 years. 25 of those years I've been a library trustee. I'm running again because I do believe the library is one of our jewels of our community. And I'm very proud to say that I've been a trustee for 25 years. I live here with my husband. We had 2 girls that grew up in town. They've flown away, but that's okay. And I just appreciate a vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Charles Fowler. Been in town for 34 years. Married with two boys. One lives in town, one lives in Acton, Maine. I was a scoutmaster for 5 years. I was with the troop for almost 20 years. I decided to run for the planning board to help the town progress and grow in ways that will benefit the taxpayers.
Thank you. Karen.
Karen Robinson. I've been in town for 57 years. I taught at Pollard School for 20. I've been on the school board. I've been on the budget committee for the school. I pretty much, I just love the town of Plaistow. I've watched it grow. I've seen a lot of changes. And the reason that's why I wanted to join the planning board, because I figured I could do a little bit more than what everybody else has been. The survey, we appreciate everybody who helped with that survey, because we are going to make use of it, and we were going to make some good changes this year. So,
Thank you, Karen. Tim.
Tim Moore. I've been in town since 1985, on the planning board since 1987. And as Karen mentioned, we do have some exciting things coming up this year on the planning board. We updated our master plan pretty thoroughly 4 or 5 years ago. The one missing chapter was economic development, so we're working with a consultant on that to get that accomplished. And we also got a housing opportunity grant, which we expect to weave into the master plan work. So should be a very exciting year. We've been pretty busy the last couple of years, and this next year will prove to be a continuation of that. So, yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Tim. Shauna?
I'm Shauna Manthorn. I've been a resident of Plaistow my whole entire life. I'm running for school board. My husband and I are both proud Timberlane alumni, and I really wanted to give back to the community that raised both of us. We got a fantastic experience living here in the Timberlane community. Plaistow for me, Atkinson for my husband, but we won't get into that. But in all honesty, I've served on several committees in the town of Plaistow. Old Home Day Committee, Pollard PTA, Plaistow Baseball, and I'm really interested in the education aspect as I am also an educator. I have a unique position. I'm an occupational therapist, so I have worked in public and private school sectors, but I also now work in higher education and am a professor. So it is a very different perspective for me to be both a parent, a taxpayer, and an educator supporting the school board functions. So I'm looking forward to continuing that momentum.
Thank you. Liz?
Hi, my name is Liz Costa. I am a 20-year resident of Plaistow. I was appointed to the Budget Committee at the last probably 4 meetings. I want to continue the work. My husband and I have raised our children. They've gone through Timberlane. I sat on the school board for almost 10 years, was the chair. I believe in our educational system, and I think we need to find ways to make things a bit more affordable for our taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And that concludes everyone's 1-minute introduction. Now I'm going to go to some questions. We're going to start with Matt and the conflict of interest. Matt, many people don't really understand what you do on the Conflict of Interest Committee. So one of the big questions we got from the public was, can you tell us what your role is and what do you do?
Certainly. Appreciate the question, Mr. Moderator. So the Conflict of Interest Committee is charged with serving as a body of individuals who is available to citizens of the town to file petitions when there's concern around conflict of interest within local government. So if there is the belief that there are services that are being procured or contracted by the town and there's an inherent conflict because of a relationship, say, between a business owner or somebody that's involved in that transaction in their dealings with the town, it's the type or an example of a conflict that would be brought to that committee for review. We receive petitions of that nature. There's a review process, and then if need be, there's follow-through investigation and a determination thereof. But there's also basic functions that we have, maintaining, our ordinance and our bylaws, reviewing that material, and making sure that our small budget but important budget is properly right-sized for the mechanisms that allow us to do our work.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Next question is for the library trustee, Jennifer. Our library building has been here for a while, so the question the public wants to know is, do you think the library building is meeting current needs of the residents, and if not, what plans do you think we should have for the library?
I do believe that the building itself is in pretty good shape after being here for a little over 20 years. There are some things that the staff and the director would like to do. We do have a capital reserve fund for big things that happen that we have no control over, like it's 20 years, we may have to get a new roof. We may have to do something with our HVAC system, that kind of thing. But the staff and the director are looking to expand services and programs always. And we have a very active children's department. And I'm sure that Jen Dowley would love to expand that. So there's always future.
10 seconds.
Future for the library expansion, but right now we're just dealing with the building the way it is.
Thank you, Jennifer. We have 3 candidates here for a 3-year term on the planning board, and according to my notes, you're going to vote for 2 of them. So the first question that we'll start with Chuck is, and they'll all answer the same question. What is your vision for Main Street Plaistow? Should it be rezoned, And what kind of zone should it be, to allow businesses or stay the way it is as a village? So what is your vision for Main Street Plaistow? We'll start with Chuck.
My vision is just to keep it as a town feeling. That's what everybody wants, is the village. That's what they changed it a couple of years ago to a village. It should stay as a village. Maybe we should get more sidewalks extended further down, better walking for the kids, for the schools. Because I know the sidewalks only stop at a certain place. I think they stop at the library, don't they? Maybe they should go a little further so people live on the, I guess that's the south end of town, or the whatever. That end of town should be able to come up this way on sidewalks. The biggest thing is, from looking at the survey and reading the survey, was there were a lot of people wanted sidewalks. And maybe we ought to, look at more on the village area of the sidewalks and try to get that. That's a good vision, is to
10 seconds.
have more capable sidewalks than what there is.
Thank you. And Karen, what is your vision for Main Street Plaistow?
Yep, Main Street and the Village Center definitely would like to make it more safe all around. Want the people to feel like we used to, just people to walk down the street, ride bicycles to school. We used to be able to do that. It's just the character and the rural area of it. That is Plaistow, and to keep the traffic off of it, and to, we're going to work on that. But that's really the truth, just to keep it safe and back to rural and good feeling.
Thank you. And Tim, your vision of Main Street Plaistow?
Well, I don't think we need any zoning changes. As both Chuck and Karen have said, sidewalks, I think, to sum it up, is the big issue. The Village Center District starts at the Little River crossing on Main Street and goes south to the library. And in our zoning, one of the objectives is to have sidewalks on both sides of the street, because it is a very busy street. We're currently working on a project with DOT to extend the sidewalks from the railroad tracks further south. That project has been on hold since before the pandemic. So I think we're looking for the DOT to pick that up and
10 seconds.
give us some cost, some true costs, so we can get that project underway. But
1 minute.
traffic speed and sidewalks, I think, are the two things on Main Street.
Thank you, Tim. Now, Shauna's running for school board for a 3-year term. Shauna, what do you think the school district can do to ensure it's able to recruit and retain exceptional staff?
Well, I think we have exceptional staff currently at Timberlane, and I would love to see them all stay. I think opportunities for professional development is going to be key, so that we can foster the growth of their professionalism and professional skills, so they can continue to support our children and their growth and development. And very clearly and strongly, I believe that they need a fair compensation. So we need to work together collaboratively as a district to support them both financially and professionally.
Thank you. Running for a school budget committee for a 3-year term, Liz. Here's a question for you. We all know that the school budget makes up a large portion of our real estate taxes. The question the public wants to know is, what are your plans and ideas to try to lower, perhaps, and put a cap on spending so that their property taxes could be lower?
I wish I had a crystal ball. The budget committee for the school district only has a certain amount of money that they have control over. In speaking with a couple of other budget committee members over the weekend, it came to light that possibly each time a department or a school comes and presents their budget, we ask for what that tax impact is and look closely at how it's going to affect each of the towns. I do agree that the budget that we're looking at this year is high. It was, as we were talking earlier, it was sticker shock. because we weren't asking what the rate was going to be and how it was going to affect the taxpayers as we were building the budget. So that's, I would hope, we could start to look at getting the numbers as we're working through the budget. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Going back to Matt, second question, conflict of interest. Matt, did you have any interesting conflicts of interest that came before you when you were on the board and the Conflicts of Interest Committee, something you can share with the public?
Thank you for the question. Unfortunately, I'm going to be boring for you folks today, and in the past year, we have not had any petitions for any conflicts of interest, so it was a quiet year. Not a bad thing.
Exactly.
Nothing wrong with nothing.
So you're not looking for more of them, are you?
We just checked the inbox.
So that's a good thing, as she said. Jennifer, library trustee. What's one thing about the library that perhaps the citizens of Plaistow don't know about that you'd like to share with them tonight?
Wow. I think a lot of people underestimate what is available at the library, especially online. There are so many things that you can access through what the, I guess they're not apps, but they're, well, I guess they are apps on the, and through the website, and it's just amazing how much information there is. I didn't do it. I guess that's the amount of information you can get from the library to me is astounding.
Thank you. For our three planning board candidates, can you give your opinion about the Plaistow master plan and if you think it needs any changes? What do you think about our master plan, and do you recommend or think it needs any changes? This time, let's start with Karen, then we'll go to Tim, and then we'll go back to Chuck. Karen?
Yeah, there's a lot to a master plan. This is, I don't know where to begin. What you do first is do the survey, and that's what we did because we like to get the opinions, obviously, of the town and what they would like to see for changes and what not to change. And I guess basically the first thing is we had a meeting with the Salem Chamber of Commerce, and we were hoping to get ideas for the economic development of our town. And they gave us some very good ideas and a lot of good help. And I think that's the first step, that we should be getting in touch with them and working on, it's more like planning, literally, for different jobs to come in and maybe different places and not more of the same of everything. So that's what I think is basically what I would say we'll work on first, is the economic development for.
Thank you, Karen. Tim, your view of the master plan and any changes you'd suggest?
Yeah. Well, I agree with Karen. Economic development is the chapter that we need to do the most work on. Statutorily, every 10 years, you need to update your master plan. And I think we've found over the years that waiting for 10 years to go by before you do an update is not very helpful. So we're in the mode of doing kind of chapter by chapter as conditions change. So what the master plan does is it enables you to do zoning and other regulatory changes to implement the master plan. And we're also keeping track of a list of recommendations in the master plan, how well we're doing in carrying those out. So we don't just set up an idea in the master plan and then go away. So economic development is the key, I think, at this point.
Thank you, Tim. Chuck, master plan and your position on it.
Well, I haven't really studied the master plan yet, knew it is. But like I said, development is one. Try to get more new businesses in town than what we have. Possibly more restaurants, possibly more, businesses, basically. Some of these empty lots that we have, maybe we can put some kind of businesses on there, or we can see what we can do. Like I said, I'm just learning, trying to learn this process, so, I've been watching some of the planning board, past ones and learning on what there is. So eventually when I can learn what the master plan is and figure it out a little bit more, maybe we can go from there.
Thank you, Chuck. Shauna, for the school board, are there any areas you feel the board could improve how it communicates with the community and the school families? Improving communication.
Communication always needs improvement across the board. I feel like personal, professional, everywhere. I know that the school district is really working to offer more communication to parents in a lot of different modes, including social media, auto call, voicemail services. A lot of principals are sending out weekly messages and updates that include important information or dates that are imperative to the child's school or district. And I think all of those things are great. I would love to see the app that we use for the school district that I think a lot of parents are accessing be a little bit easier to use or have updates that coincide with what's on the website. But those are easy fixes and things that are definitely being addressed and things that I think will absolutely help with the homeschool communication improvement.
Thank you. Liz, Budget Committee for the school. This is a tough question. Can you pick an area in the budget that you think is being overspent, and how would you reduce it?
Which one?
Oh, for
Which one?
the love of Christmas trees, as my sister would say. I really struggle with that. We need our buildings repaired because it's been pushed down the road too long. I would like to see, I know Mrs. Sherman has worked very hard on a capital improvement plan. I would love to be able to see the costing of that out so that we see how it is going to affect our budget every year. Teacher salaries we can't touch, transportation we can't touch, staff salaries we can't touch, retirement we can't touch. There's a lot. I don't know where to go with that question. It is tough. It's something that we struggle with every single time we sit at a meeting. What's next?
Thank you. Back to Tim, conflict of interest. I have as many questions for you as you had conflict of interest last year. So I don't have any others. You didn't have a report last year. If you were on a fact-finding mission, what do you think, as being a member of the board, something that you should be concerned about or maybe look at?
Well, one of the things that, if afforded the opportunity to be brought back onto the conflict of interest for another 3 years, is the group started the exercise of looking at the conflict of interest ordinance last year, and we were going to continue that review because there is collective concerns about language that was struck from the ordinance back in a 2020 warrant article that we'd like to revisit because we believe it took away from the spirit of the committee and why it was originally formed, and may have also accidentally stripped some of the committee's ability to govern itself. So there's a lot of mystery that seems to shroud the Conflict of Interest Committee, and that's okay. We do our thing, and we keep an eye out, but there is some real important work that I'd be excited to get back to if afforded the opportunity.
Thank you, Matt. Jennifer, library trustee. Could you explain or give your understanding of how does the library pick materials and programs for the library?
As a trustee, or the Board of Trustees, we don't pick the materials for the library. The staff and the director do. We only we run into situations sometimes when the materials are brought to our attention because of some conflict, some kind of controversy. We have we review what is brought before us, but we're administrative. We're not in our duties are not to do the day-to-day ordering any kind of materials for the library. That's the staff and the director.
Excellent, thank you. Planning Board, and we'll have Tim start the answer on this. This is a specific question. This citizen would like to know, what do you envision should go in the place where Bed and Bath and Beyond is?
That's really not up to the planning board, what particular store goes in there. I mean, I'm not a big shopper, so that's even, but the zoning allows for retail space. So any type of retail use that went in there, whether it be like a bed and bath, a stationery store, a fitness place. I mean, there's a whole spectrum of things that could go in there, and I don't have any particular preference. The thing we do check for each new occupant in a standalone place or shopping center is there adequate parking for that space, and is the septic tank adequate to handle the use? And those are done by staff. So I guess I don't know. Beyond that, I don't have any other information, I guess.
Thank you, Tim. Yes. You can't hear it, Norm. It doesn't echo. It's just for the TV. Norm said maybe you could speak up louder, Tim, but it won't help to speak louder into the microphone because, as Dean tells us, it doesn't magnify. It's for the TV audience only. But for the people here and for all of us to hear what you say, maybe you could speak up a little louder.
All right, I will do that.
Okay, thank you. Chuck, what do you think about Bed and Bath and Beyond? Do you shop there?
Probably, no, I don't, I do this sometimes. Probably like a Big Lots or, something like that. I mean, probably another clothes store, probably. I mean, there's a couple down, further down, I think there's a couple clothes stores. I don't think you could put a restaurant up there because I don't think it's zoned for a restaurant or anything like that. Is it? I'm not sure.
Yeah,
But,
good.
Basically a Big Lots.
Thank you, Chuck. Karen, what do you think?
Oh, we can do wonders with that. I was thinking more, when we had that, the Salem people come over, and they said, there's one thing that's really lacking in Plaistow, and that's entertainment. And I could see that maybe as a place where you could have the cornhole, you could have throw the hatchet, you could have a little place to the side where you maybe could serve drinks or, type of food there on the side, just basically for entertainment for maybe something. It's got lots of parking, it's in a good position. So I would think more that way to try to really be diverse rather than put the same thing back in, because I don't think they're going to last that long. So we need to do something different. That's just my opinion.
Thank you, Karen. Shauna, the school board position. This citizen says most school board members serve on different committees. Do you have a preference what committee you'd like to serve on, and if so, why?
I served shortly on the CIP committee, although that was the end of the wonderful work that they had already done. What's that?
With the
Oh, capital improvement plan, excuse me. I'm deaf in this ear, so I was trying to read your lips. I also served on the energy committee, but that was also short-lived. I really feel like I'm on policy committee, and it's really a lot of great work that gets done. A lot of different folks that are in the district that have different perspectives are on that committee. I feel like that's the best influence that I can have, both as a parent and as an educator. I also have a child that receives special education services, so I have a good mix and understanding of, the needs of varying students and the interworkings, daily happenings of a school. So I really feel very strongly about being on policy. I think that's a really great opportunity for my particular skill set.
Thank you. Liz, another easy question for you. You asked me for the good ones.
Oh, no, I didn't.
On the warrant, the school warrant, there's an article about leasing, and do you want to have a lease or not a lease? Can you just give us your opinion
That should be
about
her question. The Budget Committee did not design or write or put that warrant article forward. Sorry.
No.
I personally think it's a poorly written warrant article, and it gives a lot of confusion to what actually it is asking for. You are leasing because you just want a majority vote versus the bond, which you need the 2/3 vote. I just didn't like that, and I'm not even sure how I'm going to vote when I vote on the 14th.
Well, thank you.
Hey, you're welcome.
So our poor friend Matt feels left out because nobody will give him a conflict. Does anybody have any questions for the conflict expert? Anybody got anything you'd like to ask him?
How about a hatchet throwing? They were doing an idea. Is that a conflict of interest? And then where, was that?
Throwing hatchets? I think we'd be okay to throw hatchets in the plaza, yeah. I thought you were talking trial by combat all of a sudden. This is getting interesting now.
Is that a conflict of interest?
For a hatchet throw? I'm not under the auspices of what we would be looking at. I'd say we'd be okay. Sometimes I question when they mix alcohol in those institutions with throwing pointy and sharp objects, but you know.
I didn't see any coming into this room tonight, so that's a good thing. We'll take one more question from Matt.
Conflict of interest, has it ever been thought about to look at various jobs? Let's say somebody has different hats they're wearing, let's say in the town in some capacity and such. Whether or not, let's say, the amount of jobs that they have or they're assigned, if that's inherently constitutes a conflict of interest, just by virtue of the fact that you might have overlap in various groups that they're working with and such.
Sure, it's an interesting question. Though the way that the committee is structured and the way it functions is that would have to be a petition that was brought to our attention for review and research. The committee itself does not go out seeking conflict, but we're rather in a position to look at the merits of what's brought before us. So with that particular case, I'm not aware, especially not in my time or tenure with the committee, I'm not aware of that being raised as a concern. But if that was something that was brought to the committee's attention, it would be evaluated on its merits and potentially moved forward if there was a concern there.
Thank you, Matt. For Jennifer in the library, does anybody have a question for Jennifer? Getting off easy, John. Okay. We have 3 people for the library, for the planning board. Any question for the planning board members, the candidates? Any questions for planning? Planning? I have one. Jeff?
Yeah, thanks everybody for your service and running for your office. On the planning board, you talked a little bit about the master plan. I'd like to know from your perspective, somebody comes to you with an idea, something they want to do, a project they want to plan. Do you feel it's more your job to tell them why they can't, or tell them how they might?
So let me try to repeat your question because I was reminded by Dean that you don't get picked up. There's no microphones in the audience, and the people on TV and live streaming won't hear it. So you want the planning board, Jeff, to tell you, should they make recommendations to applicants if there was some reason that their proposal was not acceptable, but to help them out?
Yes, to clarify, they know many of the rules, and better than the citizens in many cases. So the citizen comes forward with an idea, there's reasons why that won't work. And my experience with the planning board is you're eager to share that with us, which is good. But also, given your experience, could you also share how we might get this done, how we might get to yes?
So to repeat again what Jeff said, can you tell us if your position on the planning board, what could you do to help an applicant get a project approved or make it better? We'll start with Chuck.
I guess if you follow the guidelines that is out there for a certain area, like residential, commercial, if you follow all the guidelines for all the steps that you need to do, I guess, if you come with something that's missing, I guess the planning board would tell you that you're missing this step. You need to apply that into it. That's the only thing I can think of is you make sure you follow. I mean, I know there's going to be guidelines that the town gives you and the planning board. If you follow all those steps and do everything correctly, I mean, we just review it and make sure everything is done right.
Thank you, Chuck. Karen, what would you do to help?
It's very hard, actually, because you have so many rules that you read in these two huge books that you learn after you've been there for a while, and you realize that they're there for a reason. So when you bring a project to us and it doesn't quite fit, what we can do is make suggestions, but it's a process that we have to follow. So we can make suggestions, yes, that you could do this, and then it would be acceptable. Or we could say, this is the rule, this is what it says right here, and we have to read it off, RSAs, and then that's what you have to do. But we do make suggestions, and we would certainly be willing to look at, see what there is, maybe something that we could change. And if you can get the change, you go to the ZBA, and that's where you can get a change. Then you can come back, and that's when we do the final.
Thank you, Karen. Tim?
Well, there's,
I get that right?
a couple approaches. If you have a very vague and general concept of something that you would like to do, I'm pretty sure we would allow you to come in and just talk to the planning board in general. No commitments on either side would be made. If you have something a little more concrete, you can come in with a conceptual plan. And again, you would be just talking in generalities. No commitments on either side for that discussion. So those are the two ways that you could get your thoughts in front of the planning board. Then I think in general, the planning staff and the planning board would like to assist people in getting their project completed. Unless it's something really anti-zoning or where we would discourage the use. But I think we're, over the years, have been pretty cooperative with people trying to get their plans accomplished.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a question for Shauna and the school board? Do you have a question? Go ahead.
Yeah, actually. So I know that Timberlane system has two options for tech schools. Has the school ever considered, because of the size of it, actually implementing and growing a tech program in the Timberlane system? And what are your thoughts about that?
Used to be one.
So, well, the question from the audience, for those watching on live stream, is does the candidate have any thoughts about implementing a tech program at the regional high school?
I am not aware historically of that as a recent board member, but as a parent in this district, I say, let's look into that. We do have really great opportunities in the tech programs that we are involved with, that we partner with in the district, which is absolutely fantastic. But, you know, I do understand, I work at a community college, so I understand that, trade and technical programs are really valuable and very important. And I also understand that not every student is a traditional education model student. And so being able to offer our students at Timberlane a variety of opportunities would be fantastic. To have it in-house or in the district would require a lot of planning, a lot of organization. Space would be a factor. So in terms of getting it up and running, it would be very challenging to do in a short term, but I would love to see us potentially look into that for sure. Yes.
Thank you. I do need to move on. Do we have a question for Liz on the school budget committee? Yes, sir.
From a budgeting perspective, proposed budget that the school board has put forward, if everything is voted positively on it, I believe the projection is roughly, what, $1,000 increase tax-wise for the member towns?
Yep.
Is there, in terms of, what would you do to alleviate or recommend doing to alleviate that type of increase that you're looking at? Because it's not something that's going to go away next year or the year after.
This is, I will honestly.
Can I repeat the question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Gives you more time to think about an answer,
Oh,
too.
gosh, yes. Phew.
Told me to do that to help you out.
Thank you.
So the question from the audience was, if everything passes on the school warrant, it's going to substantially increase taxes. What would Liz do to try to accommodate that and keep it down? And what can you do? Liz, what can you do?
What will I do? Well, moving forward, I honestly believe that we need to, when departments come in, what do you need, what do you want? What do you need? Because we need to make some hard choices about our buildings that are failing us and are deteriorating. Programs, can we afford to get programs in? If we continue to have to fix our buildings and continue to move forward the way we have to because we have to take care of our buildings, which will affect our taxes, our house values, and everything else, I think we have to have, after every department comes before us, we have to ask, what's the tax impact? What do you need? We need to be bare bones until we can bring it back down to some affordable level. I hope I answered it, and how's Ariana?
Thank you, Liz. And I want to thank all the candidates and this round of candidates for your answers. And now we're at the point of this presentation of your 1-minute wrap-up. We started with Matt, so this time, yes, Liz, we're going to start with you.
I hope that you will vote for me. I have a pretty good working background of what the school district is. I want to give back to a district that has given to me and my family. I've made some great friends. I think we have some hard choices in the next 3 to 5 years with building costs, keeping budgets down, contracts, and managing what the state is going to give us for our money. And I hope you'll vote for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Shauna?
So I missed this background in my intro because it was 1 minute long, but I was appointed to the school board in July, so I haven't been on for very long, but the time that I've spent there has been really, what a huge learning curve, and I still have so much more to learn, but I'm willing to put in the effort and willing to put in the work. I care about the children in the community, but I am also a parent in the community. I'm also a taxpayer in the community, and now I have an entirely different lens and really want to offer not only my knowledge, but also I want to be someone that is approachable to the community so you can come and tell me your thoughts, and I want to be able to use that to influence what occurs at the school board level to the best of my ability. But I would really, I'm running unopposed, but I would appreciate your support and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Shauna. Tim?
Well, as we mentioned during our discussions earlier, the upcoming year I think will be challenging and exciting with economic development. I would like to say, there's 3 of us running for 2 slots. I think that's a a healthy thing. It's too bad we didn't have 6 people running for a couple slots. But Planning Board has 4 elected members, staggered terms. We also have 5 alternate members, and currently we have just 1 alternate. So if you're interested in helping on some of the Planning Board issues, you can be appointed as an alternate, which is a very good thing. And there's a lot of alternate positions across all the committees. So if you're interested in helping at all, those would be good positions to learn on. So thank everyone for being here. Thank the library for hosting us, and see you at the election.
Thank you, Tim. Karen?
First, I want to say thank you, too, to the library and to everybody for being here and for coming. And I do, again, want to say thank you very much for everybody who supported us in the survey. That's how we begin. That's how we use our time and how we start to plan. And hopefully, it's to the majority of the people that like this. I love the town of Plaistow. I've been here a long time. We raised our kids here through everything. And I just really want to see it stay as Plaistow. But at the same time, there are changes that have to be made just by the way life is. And I want to just make them safe. And I want to make them, compatible to everybody living in town right now. So that means more to me than anything. And that's why I'm hoping that I get your support and I can continue.
Thank you. Chuck?
Thank you for coming tonight. I hope that I can learn from these people who have been on the board a lot longer than I have. And basically, just hopefully you vote for me and we can try to work with this survey that they did. Maybe we can work on a lot of the things that the people wanted for the town. And like I said, hopefully I get your support on election day. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer?
We have the best library in New Hampshire.
Yes, you do.
And I can't tell you how proud I am to be associated with this library. And our staff and director are phenomenal. And I would just like another 3 years to support them. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jen. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I just first want to thank our moderators for facilitating this discussion tonight, our gracious hosts in the library, and for all of you for taking the time out of your lives to come hear us talk and tell you our thoughts. I am going to ask for your vote in just a moment, but first and foremost, for those that are watching at home, friends and family you talk to, just get out on the 14th and vote, please. Local elections, it's where it all starts. Nights like this, what we're doing here together, this is what makes New Hampshire such a great state and what makes what we do so important. So please, hope to see you all out on the 14th to vote. I'm hoping I can earn your vote to go back to the Conflict of Interest Committee, continue the work that still needs to be done. But more importantly than your vote, I hope to get your support, your trust, and your confidence. Thank you.
Thank you. How about a round of applause for all the candidates? Thank you all for being here, and thank you for participating. We're going to take a short, about 3-4 minute break so we can have our second group of candidates come forward. Again, thank you for coming.
Okay.
Bang my gavel, but they didn't give me one. So if you could take your seats and sort of bring the noise down, I'd like to introduce our second panel tonight, the Budget Committee's candidates and the Select Board candidates. So as I mentioned before, those of you that are now joining us on Facebook Live, Vimeo, and maybe watching us on cable, the candidates will all have 1 minute to introduce themselves. They will be asked questions. They will have 1 minute to answer the questions. All candidates for that office will answer the same question. Then they'll all be given 1 minute to wrap up and conclude and tell you why you should vote for all of them. So we're going to start with an introduction and with the Budget Committee, Liz Costa. Liz?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Liz Costa. I am running for the Town Budget Committee as well. We've lived in Plaistow for 20 years. I've volunteered for different committees, both in town and with the school district. I feel it's very important to give back to the community that gives so much to you. And I also want to thank everybody for doing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, John?
Hi, I'm John Chairman. I'm a candidate for Budget Committee, Town Budget Committee. I've lived in, I'm a newcomer to Plaistow. I've only lived here 50 years. And you probably know my daughter is a school nurse, and we're very pleased to be part of Plaistow's community. We've done a lot of good things. We've seen a lot of people do very good things. And I hope you vote for me. I'm not in a particularly tough race, but I'm going to try hard. Thank you. And I do wish you vote me in so I can continue to do good things for the town. I'm very proud of being from Plaistow.
Thank you, John. Eric?
My name's Eric Neff. I'm running for selectman. Been in town about 27 years. I was born and raised here. We go back about 6 generations. The reason for doing this is I want to give something back. My grandparents were very instrumental in this town what seems like a lifetime ago, and I think it's my turn. Just to help. If you don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. That's how I kind of look at things. I come from a quality background, quality engineering, quality management, conflict resolution, things of that nature. So I like that. And I like some of the ways the town's gone and others, some not. So, yes.
Thank you, Eric. Jim?
I'm Jim Watworth. I've lived here for about 23 years. Again, like Jeff, I thought it was time to give something back to the town. I've really enjoyed living here, raising my daughter here. I think we're going to have a lot of challenges ahead of us, and we're going to have to make a lot of tough choices. And I thought that maybe I could help where I've been in business and balance budgets for 43 years. That's it.
Thank you, Jim. Jay?
Hi, my name's Jay DeRoche. I'm currently finishing up a term on the select board. My wife and I live in Plaistow. We've raised our 2 kids here. They go to Timberlane. They're teenagers. I believe in public service, and I believe that, finding things and leaving it better than you found it is important to me. And, although the last few years have been challenging as a selectman, I want to continue to see some of the things that are still out there, see them through. I'm invested in this town, and, I just want to do what's right for our community, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Pamela?
Hi, I'm Pamela Gotti. I grew up in Plaistow 45 years ago. My parents built their house on Country Club Lane. I went to Pollard all through Timberlane, and I left, started my own family, and came back when my mother was diagnosed with dementia. She passed in October. With her passing, we had her at home. We were taking full-time care of her, and now myself and I, have time to contribute back to the community. I'd like to see Plaistow kind of go back to that small town that I grew up in. I feel like it's become more of a city. I feel like there's a lot of chiefs and not enough Indians. And I'm looking forward to serve the citizens, not the inhabitants of Plaistow.
Thank you, Pamela. Now to some specific questions emailed in by the citizens of our town. For the Budget Committee candidates, Liz first, are there any specific items or parts of the town budget that you think might be a little too high? And if so, what do you suggest to lower them?
As I said with the school board, there are certain parts of the budget that you just can't touch. Contracts, utilities, whatnot, depending. I think, as stated before, we need to, once departments come in front of us, we need to ask what the tax impact will be per department. and see what is a need versus what is a want. I know that Plaistow does a pretty decent job with keeping things close, and I just want to be part of the solution to keep the taxes from skyrocketing.
Thank you. John?
I should mention I've served on the Budget Committee and the and the school board, yeah. Board of Selectmen. I wouldn't approach things, I think, first based upon what we can stop doing. I don't think that's necessarily where we are. There's a huge tax impact this year. I was involved in the CIP, which is the planning committee for the school district. And as we were developing the plan for this year, for the coming year, I went, after each meeting, I went, uh-oh, taxes are going to go way up. And that primarily is due to the fact that they haven't been keeping the buildings in the shape that they should be. We received a couple of presentations and one thorough one that led us to the point of the numbers that they've come up with. It's a lot of money. And it wouldn't have been so bad if they had been keeping the buildings in the shape they should be. If you ever get a chance to see a detailed vision.
Thank you, John, if you can finish. Thank you. I will mention for our viewing audience and those present that Eric and Jay are running for a 3-year term on the Board of Selectmen. Jim and Pamela are running for a 2-year term. So each is different. This is a question we're going to start with Eric for all of the candidates for Select Board. This citizen seems to think that we can make the town safer for pedestrians. Not the traffic, but the pedestrians. What do you have in mind that you think the town might be able to do to make it safer for our pedestrians in town?
Well, that would be getting back to the planning board. I mean, obviously sidewalks, get them off the street. Maybe lowering the speed limit. I know people hate to hear that, but it's a way to do it. Lower the speed limit. A little more police patrols, things of that nature. Just a little common sense,
Thank you, Eric. Jim? Make it safer for pedestrians.
Well, the only thing we can do is, selectmen that I'm aware of, is set speed limits. There's been talk about more sidewalks, and that's great, but that doesn't start with the selectman's office. We may finance it, but we're not going to do the planning and stuff like that, so.
Thank you. Jay? Make us safer for pedestrians.
I'll stand at the crosswalk, how's that? No, just kidding. We definitely need to get sidewalks in on both sides of Main Street. There is, as Mr. Moore mentioned earlier, DOT has a plan that's kind of on hold, so that should be getting reinvigorated here in the next year or so. We are putting money aside towards that project. As a town, we have a capital reserve that we're going to have a share in that's going to help possibly put tools in place like sidewalks, or I don't want to say roundabout. I don't want to say a roundabout, but a roundabout. Different traffic calming options that will help keep the traffic down and also push some of that traffic out to 125. But other things that can be done is we could take ownership of the road. It's a state road. If we take ownership, though, there's an impact to that in your taxes. So if you want to have control, that's something that can be done. But other than that, we would have to work with the traffic calming that is being proposed.
Thank you. And Pamela, how can we make it safer for pedestrians?
I definitely would agree with the sidewalks. I think there's an out-of-the-box opportunity to find other resources to bring in. I definitely would not support a betterment that would be assessed to the town and the taxpayers. taking care of my elderly mother. I understand how cumbersome these taxes can be, especially for the elderly. My grandchildren live 2 houses up, and there's no sidewalk, so I think that would be fantastic for them to be able to walk to the library, which is stunning. I grew up with the library on, is it Sweet Hill there?
Elm Street?
Elm Street, okay, yeah, that turns into Sweet Hill. And, yeah, I think that would be a great thing, but I do think that there's an out-of-the-box possibility to get funding for the town that maybe we haven't looked at previously.
Thank you, Pamela. And to our Budget Committee candidates, do you agree that the compensation for our municipal employees as part of the budget should keep pace with inflation? Your feeling about employee wages and keeping pace with inflation. We'll start with John first.
I don't understand the question, Bob. Can you repeat it, please?
Yes, I think the citizen wants to know, do you think that our employees should get raises based upon inflation? They said it a different way, but I think that's what they're
Like
suggesting.
with cost of living? Yeah.
Cost of living.
Yeah, going back to sidewalks for a second, we put the sidewalks on Main Street in about the year 2000 or 2001, my first year on the Board of Selectmen. The only way we could pay for those sidewalks is the state of New Hampshire was running a program that they would cover X% of whatever you put in for sidewalks. So the money, for the most part, came from the state, not from the town of Plaistow. Yeah, again, but back to the question is what, Bob?
Do you think our employees
Oh.
should get a pay raise based upon inflation or cost of living?
I think it should be a factor, but when they say based on, makes it sound like it would be for everybody. I think anybody who's been in private industry and managed employees and raises and performance, you should take a bunch of things into consideration when you're developing the budget. Shouldn't be strictly based on cost of living, but I can understand how that would be a factor.
Thank you. Liz?
I would have to agree with Mr. Sherman that we need to look at a variety of impact to your salary. Working in the private sector, there are performance reviews, and I know where I work, there's a given bucket of money for performance increases and cost of living, and I was told I got the highest, one of the highest, and I got a 50-cent raise per hour. So the bucket was pretty small, but I went back to, I'm still there because I enjoy what I do. But I think we need to look at a lot of factors that go into what constitutes an increase of living raise.
Thank you. This next question, Jay actually started touching on it, so he'll get a chance to speak further on it. The citizen wants to know, what's your position about the town taking over ownership of Main Street from the Mass line all the way up to the intersection of 125? So what is your position about the town taking the street from the state, although you can't take from the state, but taking ownership of that road? And we started with Eric last time, so we'll start with Jim this time. What's your position about taking over Main Street?
I wouldn't be up for any capital expense to that extent. We're trying to keep taxes down. We're going to be looking at runaway inflation. I mean, this is a national problem. It's a local problem. We haven't even seen the bills come in yet for, the amount of inflation that we've been dealing with for the last year or two. We're going to have a lot of unexpected expenses, and my concern is we've got an aging population. How are these people going to stay in their homes? How are they going to retire where they lived, they raised their families, and they worked? We do things like that, they're not going to be able to.
Thank
So I
you,
would be
Jim.
dead set against it.
And Jay, you brought it up before, so what's your position?
I'm not in favor of it. Part of the reason why is because It's an impact to the taxpayers. We would be on the hook to maintain the road, sand it, salt it, pave it, fix the sidewalks, fix everything. It would come on the back of the taxpayers, and, the state does a good job of plowing and maintaining it. It's a big expense. I wouldn't be in favor of it at this point, so.
Thank you, Jay. Pamela?
I obviously am not in favor of it. I think that the DOT has some stepping up to do. I do think it's a great idea. Like I said, I have grandchildren that are just a couple houses up, and they can't walk to the library. But I do not think having that on the back of the citizens of Plaistow is a smart idea. I think people are struggling right now, and I think the last thing that we need to do is add more weight financially.
Thank you, Pamela. Eric?
I have to ask you a question. Where is that coming from? Is that something being pushed by a citizen, or is that?
The library put an email and blurb out asking for the citizens to submit questions for you candidates. That was one of their
Okay,
questions.
all right. No, I don't agree with taking over such a large stretch of road. I think the state does a okay job. There does need to be some improvement. I'll just mention one of them quickly. If anyone from the road crews here, is North Ave Chandler. I don't know how many people have been coming southbound on Main. Someone scoots out of North Ave, slams on their brakes, and they're trying to get down Chandler Ave. I think that's Chandler, right? Yes. Accidents are all the time, all the time. We could fix things like that and make it safer for the sidewalks and like that. But again, we'd be going to the state. So no, I don't agree with taking over that portion.
Thank you, Eric. For the Budget Committee, and we'll start with Liz, this citizen asks, how does the rate of growth of Plaistow spending compare to other towns in the area? Do you know, if you know?
I will tell you I'm not familiar, but I do believe that Atkinson's tax rate is a lot slower than Plaistow's, and that's about all I can really compare it to.
Okay, thank you. John, do you know anything about other towns and their municipal spending?
No. Previous years, we've done, when I was on the Board of Selectmen, we did some research, and that's as far as it went. And one of the things I want to say is, somebody says there's a lot of accidents at that intersection. Well, how many? Have they been counted? Is there a report that says that? That's one of the concerns I have, is it's easy to make a statement like that, but do you have proof to back it up? And that, I'll leave that right there.
Thank you, John. Going to the selectmen, and Jay, you'll be the first to answer this question, and we'll rotate. This citizen says, in prior town reports, employees' salaries of the town were listed, and recent ones don't list them. What is your position about transparency, and do you believe the town report should list pay of town employees' salary? We'll start with Jay.
That's a tough one, because they're public employees, but the public has a right to know what their taxes go to pay for. And, there is some privacy issues that I would be concerned about, but we've done it in the past. I don't see why we wouldn't be able to do it in the future. So it wasn't in the town report the last few years. It's something we can look at doing again.
Thank you, Jay. Pamela?
Yeah, I'm all about transparency, and that was actually one of the issues that I was looking into, is I couldn't find any information in regard to what the selectmen were making and town officials. I also believe that we need to have people that are on any of the boards living in the town. I'm a strong believer in that. I think that there's vested interest when they are residents of Plaistow, New Hampshire. But yeah, I think transparency is key. The taxpayers are paying their salaries. We know what all the other politicians make, federally. So yeah, I would totally support that.
Thank you. Eric?
Same, all about transparency. I don't see reason, I'm not saying you're hiding it, but I don't see why it shouldn't be published.
Thank you. Jim?
Well, I'd first want to know why they stopped publishing it. And if it was on the advice of the town attorney, I think we'd have to go with his advice on that to stay out of litigation. But if it's not a problem, then certainly the transparency would be appreciated by the taxpayer, and I think it would be a good thing.
Thank you, Jim. Now, those of you that are in the audience here, and maybe those that have been watching at home, will notice that we now have a microphone in the middle of the room. You do not need to pick the microphone up. You just need to get close to it and speak to the candidates. So now I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have questions for the Budget Committee candidates? You can approach the microphone. Just stand up. You don't have to pick the microphone up. Dean will adjust the volume from his location. For the Budget Committee candidates, any questions? Jeff? Maybe your name and address, Jeff.
Thanks, Bob. Good evening, everybody. Jeff Oligny, 28 Main. Thanks for your service up here tonight. My question, it's no surprise to anybody, what our society is facing nowadays. We've got pending potential recession. We've got people getting laid off. We've got inflation. We've got young kids being exposed sexually in the schools to various things. We've got COVID. I think COVID's kind of over, but we've got fentanyl. We've got a lot of people dying. We've got a lot of people committing crimes. The crime rate's up quite a bit. People that are committing crimes aren't necessarily being locked up. I'm trying to understand your views on on traditional values and how you might incorporate the concerns of the public that I just mentioned in your job if you're elected.
So I think we can address that to everyone, and we'll start with Liz. Your views on that, Liz?
Well, I want to address the fentanyl and stuff like that because we have a great program, SOROC, that we did vote on last year and was placed into the budget. They served over 500 families the year before, and I think that is a program that we should be keeping in. We should be working with the police department to educate them and to make sure. I also think that I'm not going to touch the school stuff because that's a school board issue. But I think that we need to educate the public as to what programs are out there for the community, because we as a community as a whole, it takes a village. I hate that phrase, but it really does take a village to raise a child, and whether it's our community as a whole or your family unit as a whole. My 3 kids got out of the high school, with not a lot of issues, and have graduated from college, and one is in Syracuse right now. So, I think it's all about services and what we can provide as a town.
Thank you, Liz. John?
Well, yeah, some of these issues are social issues, and you're not going to solve them at a local level, but you can contribute to making things better. I guess I'll use the word better enforcement of traffic speeds. We should do something about that. Maybe that's not a big deal, but it is for a lot of people. It's a big deal. And I'm currently on the side of I'm going to say this wrong, and I apologize. We need to punish people better. If there are people out there doing bad things, we need to get them to stop. And that would, I think, make a huge difference in this community and the state and nationally. So those are the things I look at, but there are some terrible things that we need to do better, like the train crash in Ohio. We can't have things like that. You got to stop that. I don't know how you do it. Punishing the owners of the trains would be something, but there's a long way to go. Everybody should take one step. One thing you can do tonight or this week that'll make something better for somebody.
Thank you, John. Eric?
Can you summarize? I think we got a little off track.
Yes, I'm just, in summary, the social concerns, whether they be financial, drug-related, exposing children to sexual content, losing jobs, inflation, people can't afford to live in Plaistow, for example. I'm trying to understand what you think of these issues and, how these issues are going to influence your decision-making in your role.
Well, definitely on budgets. I mean, and then I'm going to swing back to the fire and brimstone on the side, only because I am old school. But punishment in jail for an addiction is the wrong way to go about it. It's education, there's rehab, there's programs. That's the way I think about that side of it. Hate to disagree with it, but that's just the way. It's my thought process. Is education first, programming, and the other part.
Well, I think the nation is actually stepped forward along the lines that you're explaining right now. I mean, like John was explaining, somebody speeding down Main Street causing a car crash, if it's a third offense, maybe they need to lose their license for a little while, right?
Absolutely.
We don't need to, condone that behavior.
Right.
I think that's what John was talking about, not necessarily drug-related.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric. It would be nice if you could take Jeff's question and focus it on your position as maybe running for the office you're running from.
Right.
It would be nice, like, how does that affect you if you get elected to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, that's well
what would
put.
it
Thank
do
you.
with your opinion?
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Jim?
As a selectman, I think we could possibly find a way to fund some more social programs for the kids. Busy hands are happy hands. Maybe additional resource officers to keep an eye on things. I mean, it's like a needle in a haystack, this fentanyl coming in, and it's coming in the mail. I mean, I don't know how much you can actually do locally, with the borders wide open. But I'd certainly be open to finding ways to keep kids busy, keep them off the internet. And, in the end result, they'd be happier. They'd be more physically fit, they'd live longer, and they'd have more pride in themselves, and maybe not turn to the drugs.
Thank you, Jim. Jay?
As it relates to selectmen in town, we do offer services through our Human Services Department to help with a lot of counseling, drug addiction, stuff like that. Like Liz said, that we joined up with SoRock, maybe do a lot more coordinated efforts, outreach with SoRock as a town. I know our fire department is reinvigorating their Explorers program to try to keep kids engaged with other activities, so stuff like that. So I know our police are very active in town. They have good relationships with the businesses, and they're out there trying to do their best to stop crime, and it's a team effort when it comes to working with the community. So I anticipate I'd like to see more outreach from the PD as well. Thank you, Norm. Let's see. We do have tools within town that will allow us to address some of the social issues, but it's a matter of implementing them, and maybe that's a focus for the upcoming year.
Thanks, Jay.
Thank you, Jay. Pamela?
So, I'm real passionate about the true pandemic of opiate addiction, fentanyl, heroin. I have close family members that are recovering heroin addicts. And I myself was on a drug task force, a coalition in New Hampshire, and we were written up a couple times in the paper for going to find people that the police couldn't go in and get. So that's truly one of my passions, and how to help them. But more importantly, how to help families understand what's going on. Opiate addiction is a very different addiction than the other addictions out there. In terms of the CRT or the having sexualization introduced to our children, well, that's part of the reason I'm here. I'd like to have input as to what my grandchildren are exposed to, so I am passionately invested in that.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, candidates. Any other question for our panel here? Name and address for the record.
Richard Anthony, 4 Village Way. This is a budget question, just theoretically, how you would approach it. Would you consider, you could reduce the tax rate by using surplus, right, to impact the tax rate? I think in 2022 we did do that. 2017 was the last time we did that, previous to that. But you could also budget with respect to tightening the budgets instead of using the surplus that is the unexpended amount of monies and then using it to reduce. Like, for instance, the welfare budget, I believe, is underspent by half this year. So it's not a question of, let's say, necessarily putting more money into services, but if you had $11,000 and half of that wasn't expended for 2022. So just interested to know what your theory is on that.
So why don't we start with Pamela this time? We'll go that way. Liz needs a break, she said.
So I believe that those funds that are not allocated should be diversified into the budget currently. I don't see why, if we're not using them for the targeted budget, why they can't be allocated elsewhere. I feel like there's little pockets of money that are tucked everywhere that maybe we're not fully aware of. And I also am a big proponent of making things viable for your average citizen to understand. I'm going to be new to the select board. That does not mean that I am not a quick learn and that I will not put everything that I have into it. But I have a hard time sometimes when I'm reading some of the ballot questions understanding exactly what they mean. So again, I'm all about transparency, and if there are funds that are not being allocated, no, I don't think we should add more funds to that. I think we should take those funds and allocate them elsewhere.
Thank you. Jay?
Can you repeat the question? No, just kidding. So as far as surplus goes, sometimes it's appropriate to use surplus to help offset the tax rate. Sometimes it may not be, because we do carry an unexpended fund balance recommended by the state, and we do have a town policy that dictates that. So we try to keep a reserve, but after we expend the money from a budget, there's surplus sometimes. Some years it's pretty tight, and we only have, I know it's a few $100,000, doesn't sound like, it sounds like a lot of money, but in a $10 million budget, it's a small percentage. But when you have that left over, we can use that to apply it to help keep the tax rate low the next year. That's one option. But if you look at the budget and you have lines where, you know, maybe you only spent half the line, you want to take a look at the historical, the history of that line, right? You know, some years you might have overspent it, some years you may have not spent anything. And when it comes to human services, you know, different services happen within different years, but you can also look at different areas within the budget to, one of the highway budget usually takes the biggest hit with paving. You know, if we're looking to cut something within the budget, it happens to be paving in our history. So those are
Jay.
areas to look at. Thank you.
Jim?
I think we need to maintain, reserve funds. With this crazy inflation, we don't know what it's going to cost in the next year. We're going to get a lot of surprises, and I think we need to maintain those extra funds just in case. So the taxpayers, we don't use them all up, and then the taxpayers get hammered the following year with unexpected tax bills. Try and keep it more steady.
Thank you, Jim. Eric?
I think I'm going to agree with Jay on this to a point. Robbing Peter to pay Paul can be a dangerous situation. Deplete one fund, and then you'll be looking the next year to fund it. But yes, if you look at the history, and you have a 10-year history, and you've seen it come down, maybe you don't have to fund it to that level anymore. Maybe we have to look at our level of funding on everything, and then make a decision. And that's how the budget should be built.
Thank you. Eric? He just did. John?
Hi. I made a decision a few years ago that I wasn't going to read from notes. Whenever I spoke in public, I was going to do it off the top of my head. My wife suggested a different approach in that I may want to take notes so I can not make so many mistakes. As always, she was right, and we need to move on. A big part of being a selectman is managing the budget, or directing the town manager to manage the budget. And some of the things are just too hard, like plowing. Plowing has always been a problem because it's an expense that comes up right at the end of the year, and maybe you didn't set money aside. So you set money aside up front, you end up not using it, and there's a surplus. So I believe that selectmen and the town manager present a very positive and appropriate budget. I've got a lot of other comments to make now that I've got a paper, so I'll be dangerous.
Thank you, Sean.
That's it for now.
Liz?
I have to agree with Jay that we need to look at historical data. We need to look at seasonal information because we can't count on that. I think we do need to have some type of surplus. And I'm just going to go back to Timber Lane when we had to freeze our budget because we did not have, our septic system went at the high school and we had to freeze that budget. If there wasn't some surplus built in, I'm not quite sure what we would have done. I believe we would have had to go to the taxpayers to ask to vote for more money into the budget. And I think it's dangerous to run tight down to the penny. It's great when I see my tax bill and it doesn't go up that much. But we do have to look at the data trends of what's been spent and how do we project that out.
Thank you, Liz. I think we have time from the audience. One more question for the panel. Does someone have a question for the panel? I don't see anyone approaching the mic that we put out. I want to thank the panel, but before you have your 1-minute wrap-up, I want to remind everyone, come to vote next week, March 14th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I want to say that again because I know people will show up after 7. We are closing at 7 p.m. If you're not there at 7, the door gets locked. And it is at a new location, the Plaistow Fish and Game. So please make a note, May Ray Avenue, next week, 1 week, March 14th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. The Select Board will be working there. Norm and I will be there. We hope a lot of you show. It's time to show your support for all the candidates and your position. So please come out and vote. Get out to vote. Bring your friends. I think it'll be and then we want your comments afterwards. Do you like the new location? The Select Board wants to know. What do you think of the Fish and Game? And again, thank the Fish and Game. I want to thank the library for having us here and every year giving us this opportunity for you to listen to the candidates, both live stream and on tape. And again, I want to thank my assistant, Mr. Major, who's always at my left or right-hand side, always helping me, and I appreciate it immensely. So now we're going to end with your 1-minute wrap-up. Tell us whatever you'd like. Why should we vote for you? And we're going to go in reverse order and start with Pamela. Pamela.
So I think I'm a very different candidate than what is on the board currently and has been for some time. I am definitely smaller budget. I'm definitely about citizens of Plaistow. In terms of septic, I believe that the high school is built on the town dump, so you probably just would need to dig a bigger hole. At the end of the day, I think there's pockets of money that are stashed in different places. I think people are having difficulty paying their electricity bill right now, and the tax increases that just keep coming, I'm not really seeing why that's happening, and I plan on investigating it for the citizens. And I look forward and pray for your vote on the 14th.
Thank you, Pamela. Jay.
I just want to thank the library trustees, the library, and our town moderators for putting this night on, so thank you very much. Last few years as a selectman have been very challenging. I came on the board right when COVID hit, so like everything shut down right after that, and it was very challenging. We've dealt with some turnover, and I think, you know, we've come a long way in the last few years, and I think we're on an upswing. You know, I like to think, working with the board, we've made some really good decisions as far as trying to keep the tax rate level, so your taxes from the town aren't, you know, impacting your tax bill as much. We've utilized ARPA funds to help offset some of the big ticket items like some police police cruisers, help lower the cost of the ladder truck, but hopefully I earned your vote for another 3 years, and I just want to leave Plaistow better than I found it, and, you know, just want to do the right thing. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Jim?
I'd like to thank all the people that are here, the candidates, the current serving selectmen, John, previous selectmen, for their service. It's probably a thankless job, a lot of headaches, a lot of phone calls, but I feel, as a taxpayer, not just as sitting up here as a candidate, I feel a lot more comfortable tonight seeing how interested everybody is in maintaining costs and maintaining the town as it is. And, you know, whether I get elected or not, I mean, my pet peeves are, you know, I'd like to do more research on people when we hire them, so we don't end up in these bad situations, paying people not to do their jobs and stuff like that. But, you know, most of all, I want to thank the guys that have been there week after week serving the community, and that's why we have such a special town to live in.
Thank you. Eric?
Just want to thank everyone for putting this together. You probably could have spent doing something else on a Tuesday night. Yeah, I do want to see change, and positive change. I grew up here. It was a small town. It's tiny. It's expanded 5-6 times the size. There's growing issues here. In the budget, yes, it is what it is. But I hope to make a difference. I was told a long time ago, and it's kind of cliche, don't be part of the problem, be part of the solution. And that's what I want to be for you guys. Come to me with your ideas. You know, we work for you, and that's how it should be.
Thank you. John?
I've got a lot of random thoughts. I kept notes as we went along. Somebody asked about the Conflict of Interest Committee and what it does and how it functions. I thought Matt gave a great answer and explained it. But also, if you look in the town report, it's in the town report. Pretty good description of it, too. So you should utilize the town report as much as you can, and that's one place I would suggest specifically. I'm surprised no one brought up the issue of how many members there should be on the budget committee. I'm surprised that didn't get any attention. My opinion is you don't want to, in my opinion, make the budget committee too small, because it would make it easier to have people create a faction of people that would take over the budget. That wouldn't be a cross-section. I thank the library trustees for hosting this, as they do every year. And be careful if you're talking about what to do with Bed Bath & Beyond. No, it's true. Right? If there's some issue in the future that comes up about that property and what was done with it, someone might complain, oh, hey, the selectmen already decided what we're going to do with it. It's unfair. Become a planning issue, and could be a real conflict of interest.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that. Liz?
Thank you, everybody, for hosting this evening. I agree with Mr. Neff that, yep, you could be doing something else on your Tuesday night. I hope you'll vote for me. I've heard some of the questions and pulled some stuff out, the tax comparisons for other towns and how do we compare. That's something I would be happy to bring forward. I also think that looking at historical data as we build a budget is really important for us to look at, as well as seasonally, how are we doing with our salt and our sand, and how is that going? And, having consensus, it's up to actually the select board to give raises to the employees. That's not up to us as a budget committee. That's their purview.
It's up to the town manager.
Thank you, sir. But I think we need to look at the whole picture and how it's going to affect our budget, as well as making sure we have some type of surplus so that we are not bare bones to the end, hoping that there's no catastrophic event. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. And how about a round of applause for all these people? And like all of you, I thank the library for allowing us to be here tonight and sharing their views with you. It's on cable. It was on Facebook Live. You can get it in another day or so on the cable channel and watch it. And please come out and vote. Express your American citizenship by voting. Hope to see all of you next week, March 14th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at the Fish and Game. Thank you very much.